Right.
Notre Dame, lost to Northern Illinois, doesn't seem to have had a big impact on them. And the ACC, if it lands two, has done very well, especially with one of its expansion teams that nobody could understand, that literally had to pay ransom money to get in to the league. And then, here I am circling back to the SEC. But I mean, I ran into people before the season that kept saying five, six, and I kept saying four would be a good number. And the fact that it could be three is one of the bigger upsets I have seen.
All right, so stay there for a second because there are some that would argue maybe the SEC is still overvalued. Do you believe that? Are they undervalued? Like where are we with the SEC and how the perception is?
Listen, Matt, you know where I work, but I can't say they're undervalued because right now I would put three SEC teams in if I'm sitting there at the head of that committee. The A&M situation is interesting. I just can't imagine A&M winning against Texas and Georgia. That's not in my card.
Yeah.
I think the fact that there were a lot of really good teams in the SEC this year that simply couldn't be consistent, and that's going to be the epitaph of the league this year. The road is very difficult, and I'm it's another for another day, but I think there will be a chilling effect for some schools. But I think Tennessee is very deserving of the playoffs. Obviously, Georgia, Texas are if Texas looks terrible Saturday night, then that opens that conversation as well.
Let's go to the Big Ten. Do you think the Big Ten is overvalued?
I do, but again, when you have four teams that play quality level football and the rest are in the hinterlands, it's really hard to have a good evaluation. And the committee group clearly likes a school that only has zero losses or one loss, i.e., Indiana and Penn State. But the idea that Illinois is a ranked team, pretty laughable to me.
Yeah, and look, I'd like to nitpick at this more because Penn State really hadn't done much at 10-1. We talked about where they are in the grand scheme of things, the Indiana schedule conundrum. I think Oregon or Ohio State, I don't think anybody has a problem with them based on their resume and what they've done, but you can't really pick at a lot of this, Paul, because again, there's 12 teams. I think Boise State is incredibly overvalued based on their resume and what they've done. But I just don't think we can get too deep into it because you got 12 teams. 12 teams have to get in. You can't just go like here. But I've always been of the thought, just hell with it. Put in who you want. I mean, if you legitimately think Alabama or Ole Miss could beat Indiana, then throw them in instead. I don't think it needs to be so resume driven.
Man, you've been around college sports a long time. That's just not the way it works. I mean, but I mean, I can't get that upset. I mean, last year, you think about the Florida State versus Alabama, Georgia. I mean, that was a real debate. TCU Baylor 10 years ago. This is not really a debate. I can't stand up and scream and holler that an Ole Miss team that had a chance to finish the season and then
Yeah.
loses to a five. Well, in Alabama, listen, I spent most of my life in Alabama. I can't fight for them.